News of the day.
Mr. Zimmerman, have you made a decision as to whether or not you want to testify in this case?
With values that never die.
There are certainly a lot of controversies or scandals brewing right now when it comes to the Obama administration.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Dealing with the federal government is not always high-tech, and it's not always user-friendly.
The stories that matter.
This is a massive escalation in the tension here in Egypt.
The issues that count.
I don't know why the media tries to make this into a sensation. We have never hidden the fact that we supply Syria with weapons.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
He's got the red, white, blue flying high on a farm. Semper Fi tattooed on his left arm. Spend a little more in the store for a tag.
Welcome to American Heartland with Dr. Grace. I am the editor of Politics and Culture at worldtribune.com. And every week on this show, we uphold values that will never, ever die. This week, I was stirred, I was deeply moved by an op-ed penned by a cancer patient by the name of Edie Sundby. Many of you have already heard of her. She has complained in a very poignant manner that the Obamacare exchanges and this whole Obamacare rollout essentially means that the individual insurer that was insuring her, she's part of the individual insurance market, United Healthcare, that they terminated her policy. And as a result, the specific cocktail that she put together to stay alive for 7 years, battling this cancer that she has, this special cocktail, this special recipe that she found to try to stay alive is basically been completely smashed. It's been smashed to pieces by Obamacare. United Healthcare has said that they're not going to cover her anymore, even though they have already spent $1.2 million on her care so far. And I was especially stirred by the last paragraph in that op-ed. She writes, "For a cancer patient, medical coverage is a matter of life and death. Take away people's ability to control their medical coverage choices and they may die. I guess that's a highly effective way to control medical costs. Perhaps that's the point." End of quote. I am infinitely familiar with the fight against cancer. Unfortunately, both of my parents passed away from brutal diseases. They fought long and hard. My mother in particular died in 2008. And I know what it means to go through that kind of an illness. I helped her as much as I could. And I witnessed horrifying scenes, as so many of you out there who know people who have battled cancer can relate to what I'm about to say. When you have cancer, everything is difficult. Eating is difficult. Sleeping is difficult. Swallowing is difficult. Talking is difficult. Thinking is difficult. Walking is difficult. Going to the bathroom may be difficult. And as your body weakens, your mind also begins to be a little bit more forgetful, perhaps, be a little bit sentimental, perhaps, a little bit mournful, a little bit reflective on your life. You want to have some key conversations as you see the powers of your body ebbing away. You want to avoid some conversations. Sometimes you just want to forget the whole fight that you're embroiled in. But you really can't escape it. It engulfs every second, every minute. It's part of every breath that you take. Those of you that have had terrible illnesses or have known those that have terrible illnesses, have tried to help those with such illnesses, understand that the battle is so difficult. The last thing you need is to also battle an insurance company, to make an extra phone call, to talk about which doctor is going to take over your medical care. I really feel for this woman. I think all of us who are healthy, when we talk about medical care and long-term care for ourselves, having to make all these decisions, we find it difficult even with all our powers of good health. But this week, I think we vividly see, what about the unhealthy folks out there who now have to deal with this? If it's a headache for us, what do you think it is for them? For them, it's more than a headache. It must seem like an impossible mountain. It must seem so crushing. That's how I felt when I read this op-ed. This woman must feel crushed at the moment. And she clearly feels that nobody cares for her, certainly not this impersonal government. And that perhaps from their point of view, the sooner she goes, the better. That's what she concludes. I'm a burden, aren't I? I think there is no clearer illustration of the brutality, the inefficiency, and the lack of regard for human life that is Obamacare than this woman's very powerful story. And I ask you all to pray for her, to pray for all those who are ill, who are sick, and have to deal with this disastrous Obamacare policy. You know, there really is no excuse for what the president has done to all those who are sick and even all those who are healthy. He was supposed to improve the healthcare system, and all we have now is one gross, inefficient bureaucracy that can't even produce a functioning website. For crying out loud, it's a website. Even amateurs can put together a website nowadays. Even people with very little training can do it. And yet the government has failed to do so. And so, quite fittingly, this week they have been mocked. They have been mocked in a way that reminds us of what Clint Eastwood did when he essentially, before the election campaign of during the election campaign of 2012, he basically presented the president as an empty chair. Well, this week we had Carrie Underwood and Brad Paisley, the hosts of the Country Music Awards, who also mocked him, especially mocking this disastrous Obamacare rollout. Roll it, Brittany.
Let's go to the website and get you signed up.
Oh, okay.
Let's see here. Let's see. This can't be too hard, right?
Why is it spinning?
Oh, it does that.
Okay. Why is it smoking?
I don't... Maybe we should restart it.
Obamacare by morning.
Why is this taking so long?
So long.
So long.
Oh, hold on. I'm gonna wind up with hemorrhoids if I sit here till dawn. We'll have cataracts and dementia. Oh, this is getting on my last nerve. Obamacare by morning, over 6 people served.
Well, that was very, very well done by Carrie Underwood and Brad Paisley. Really, in a nutshell, they spoofed the inefficiency of the website, and they also are spoofing the low enrollment numbers. I thought that performance on stage was really funny, and just as funny was the reaction of the folks in the crowd, because as the camera panned the audience, you could see those who are Obama supporters looking rather aghast and horrified that now the president's signature health care law is being mocked in such a flagrant manner. And you could tell those who are not fans of the president laughing uproariously, gleefully, enjoying this moment. It seems that the president cannot escape not only how dreadful the rollout has been, not only how horrible the program itself is, but also his own lies. Now he's compounding his problems, actually. And this is the worst thing. If I was advising him, I would say the worst thing you can do right now is trip up again. And in fact, that is what he did. He's trying to tell us that he never promised that people wouldn't lose their specific health care plan, the specific health care plan that they have. He's also tried to tell us recently, with far too much nuance, that he never promised that people who had a certain doctor would lose that doctor. His words were clear and unequivocal, and most times he ended those sentences with a period, meaning no nuance is necessary. And now he is trying to dissemble, basically. He's trying to tell us that he said something other than what he said. And he looks like a blatant liar and a fool. Listen to how the Republican Party has spoofed his words. Roll it, Brittany.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor. If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan. If you have or had one of these plans before the Affordable Care Act came into law, and you really like that plan, what we said was you could keep it if it hasn't changed since the law's passed.
Is that what they've been saying? White House spokesman Jay Carney was asked about the new line.
The president, as awesomely powerful as the office is, can't go back in time.
That presidential promise got a wee bit of a tweak. Key new words there.
There's some spinning going on as the White House tweaks that message.
The White House has good reason to be in major damage control, and they know it.
I don't know what is more appalling, the president blatantly lying or the media actually referring to this as a tweak. This isn't a tweak. This is an outright lie that everyone can clearly see. The president is so much hot water over this that you now have a bunch of senators, Democratic senators, who have approached him saying, listen, get your act together. We are in jeopardy in 2014. This rollout is a disaster, and your lies are compounding the problem. For Republicans, the silver lining in all this, and for conservatives, the silver lining is, look, we have been saying every step of the way that he cannot be trusted. And now it is clear that he cannot be trusted. Nor can any member of his administration be trusted. Listen to how the Secretary of Health and Human Resources, Kathleen Sebelius, tried to spin her way out of a very simple question on Capitol Hill. Roll it, Brittany.
Madam Secretary, in September 2009, the Quinnipiac poll said that 88% of Americans were satisfied with their current health insurance plan, which is why the president, no doubt, made the promise that he made. And as you can see, as of yesterday afternoon, the White House website says if you like your plan, you can keep it, and you don't have to change a thing due to the health care law. Well, we know that lying to Congress is a crime, but unfortunately lying to the American people is not. I'd just like to ask you a simple true or false question. Is that statement on the White House website true, or is it false?
Sir, I think the statement
is it true or is it false, Madam Secretary?
Your plan, the vast majority of Americans who are insured are in the employer market, or in public plans, or in veterans plans, and those plans have stayed in place and continue to offer benefits. The 11 million people who are in the market, a majority of those individuals will keep plans that now will have stronger coverage, and others will have to choose, if they have a brand new plan and not a grandfather, have to choose of a plan that they.
My time is limited, so I will just ask that the record note that you have refused to answer my question, whether it's true or false. So let me ask you another question.
Is it true or is it false? It's a simple question. Obviously, She is trying to help the president, but even she, under such intense grilling, had to admit that enrollment so far is very low. And now, essentially, the chickens are coming home to roost. The president and his party rammed this policy through against the wishes of conservatives in the Republican Party. They tried to do this on a purely partisan vote, and there is no consensus in the country that this should have been done, and there is no blessing in the president's health care policy. It was trouble right from the start.
Oh, I knew you were trouble when you walked in. So shame on me now.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Welcome back to American Heartland. This is Dr. Grace, upholding values that will never die. This week, there was a bombshell interview by a former Secret Service agent, Dan Bongino. He is a 12-year veteran of the Secret Service. He defended many presidents, both Republican and Democrat. And he revealed what he saw behind the scenes. And this truly is justice. Talk about a fly on the wall. For months and months and months, we've been discussing how we, the American people, have been under the surveillance of the NSA. And as it turns out, this Secret Service agent is now telling us what he saw behind closed doors. And it is a really ugly picture. Essentially, he says that what he witnessed is that this administration sees governing as having a shiny new toy. They basically see government as a tool that they can use to conduct whatever experiment they feel like conducting. And he is really issuing a warning to everyone. Do not trust this government. He said repeatedly, it is not a matter of if they're going to use information against you, it is only a matter of when. And he said that this government is essentially crossing lines, crossing ethical lines that he hadn't seen any other previous government cross, including that of Bill Clinton. So what he is saying is that he was so appalled by what he witnessed, he is determined to go public with his information. He's written a book, and he's also running for office for Congress in Maryland. His interview, I think, is extremely powerful because now you have somebody who actually knows intimately what is going on in the White House, confirming what many of us have been saying on the airwaves based on our sources. And this man is blowing the whistle on the rampant corruption and abuse of power that is this Obama administration. He said that what really turned his stomach more than anything else was witnessing how Obamacare was crafted as a piece of legislation where so many backroom deals were done. And remember, this president told us that he wasn't going to operate that way, that he was going to operate in the clear light of day. Instead, Mr. Bongino is revealing that his actions behind the scenes are even worse than that of other presidents, and that their ability to wield information against American citizens is unlimited, and that they do so without any scruples and without any reservation. I also thought what was most interesting about several interviews that he gave is that he discussed what kind of people the president surrounds himself with. Many have wondered what exactly drives this man. Is he truly some kind of brilliant socialist, or is he really an incompetent buffoon lurching from crisis to crisis? I keep saying that he's more of a buffoon than some kind of brilliant socialist. And I think Mr. Bongino confirms a lot of that. He explains that Mr. Obama is more interested in, and he excels more at politics than at governing. And one of the reasons for this is that he actually chooses to surround himself with not people who are effective at crafting legislation, not people who have an excellent record of governance in any way, shape, or form, but people who are good at campaigning, people who are good at politics. Listen to what he said on the Cooner Report. Roll it, Brittany.
These guys are political animals. They're not governing animals. And everything to them, people say all the time the president's on a permanent campaign. Well, of course he is. He surrounds himself with permanent campaigners. These aren't, remember, everybody complains in the mainstream media that this meme's been out there that, the Republicans won't work with President Obama. Well, nonsense. He's got the biggest pieces of liberal legislation rammed through with no Republican support at all. Dodd-Frank, the stimulus, Obamacare. I mean, these are groundbreaking pieces of legislation hammered over the Republican Party's head because he surrounded himself with political types. And don't trust them with your civil liberties. They don't govern. All they do is campaign, and everything to them is division capital.
And that is a key theme of this administration. They do not govern, they campaign. I think he nailed it. They don't govern, they campaign. This president excelled in 2008 in that campaign in defeating Hillary and then also winning election for himself. And then the only other time he seemed to have done anything right was when he won re-election. And in that second election, I thought it was a distant shadow of his 2008 campaigning skills because he used a different strategy. In the 2012 election campaign, he used the strategy of divide and conquer, whereas in 2008, he was much more innovative and creative. But nonetheless, the only thing this president really deserves credit for is his ability to win office. But when it comes to actually governing the people, I can't think of a single success that he has been the architect of. I can't think of one. Literally, I'm being really honest. I can't think of one thing that he designed, that he crafted during his administration that I thought was brilliant. Some of the good things that happened, other folks, for example, the killing of Osama bin Laden. I mean, mostly you had the Navy SEAL Team 6 who did that. But he himself, what he envisions purely from his own mind, from his own brain, whether it's foreign policy or domestic policy, he's horrible. He's absolutely horrible. He's incompetent. I think it's very clear now to the American people. And I think this Secret Service agent who is that fly on the wall confirms that and also gives us an insight on how hypocritical the Obama administration is. He said very clearly that one of the things he witnessed is right from the start, this man was never going to be a uniter because behind the scenes, even in the early stages of the administration, the focus of the president was to divide the American people so that he could ram through a very narrow, radical agenda. The mainstream media and this president has tried to present the narrative that he's the great uniter. He has a great vision. He had great pieces of legislation. But it's the Republicans, the party of no, that have thwarted him every step of the way. Instead, Mr. Bongino exposes the lie. From the very start, this president was determined to practice the politics of division. Roll it, Brittany.
How do we divide people and not get them to vote for us, but to vote against the other guy? They're doing it now with Obamacare. The website broke. Oh, it's the website designer. It's not the fact that the whole system was designed poorly, Obamacare. And, now it's the Republicans are doing it. They're holding it up. And it's all nonsense. They don't get you to vote for them. They get you to vote against the other guy.
And Mr. Bongino laid out in vivid detail the conversations that he heard right from the start by politicos who were determined to keep the American people as divided as they possibly could. So when you look around and you see American legislation that isn't working, and you see a nation that is deeply divided, this is essentially the fruits that the president is bearing. These are his fruits: division and dysfunction. And you know, the Bible tells us, you know them by their fruits. This is the man that we have come to know very well. And many Americans have at last seen the light, because his poll numbers have dropped so dramatically. For the first time since he's been elected, he is now in the 30s. So the bloom is off the rose. The emperor has no clothes. He has truly been unmasked. And Mr. Bongino's testimony gives further light into what many of us have been saying. The President of the United States is so dreadfully incompetent, and he has so dreadfully betrayed the trust of the American people, that there is only one response that we can, should, and must have. We must block him so decisively in 2014 that he can do no further harm. This man isn't done yet. He still has visions of grandeur in foreign policy. He's still trying to ram through immigration reform. And we have to fight with all our strength in order to ensure that the opposition is strong in 2014, so that we take away the Senate and we hold on to the House. The best that we can hope for at this point is to ensure that there is no further harm. And now that we know exactly who he is, exactly what he's capable of, there is absolutely no excuse on our part from preventing him from inflicting further harm upon this nation. You know, I say all of this with great, great sadness, because this president had a golden opportunity. Had he truly been the black Christian man that he presented himself to be, he would have gone down in history as having done what no other president before him had done, which is to truly unite us, white and black, red states and blue states, as he said so eloquently himself. The problem has been he is not a true Christian. He's not a Christian at all. He lied even on that right from the very start. And as a result, all he did successfully was to campaign, and then he has succeeded in rendering this nation broken and deeply divided. Those are the fruits of this man, and we applaud Mr. Bongino for speaking clearly, loudly, and giving us even more insights into this corrupt and scandal-ridden administration. This is Dr. Grace Vuoto, the editor of Politics and Culture at WorldTribune.com, upholding values that will never die.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Let it rain over me. Let it rain over me.
Welcome back to American Heartland with Dr. Grace. I am your host, the editor of Politics and Culture at WorldTribune.com. I am here to uphold values that will never die. And week after week, we are doing that forcefully, unequivocally, with clarity, with conviction, and our audience is growing by leaps and bounds. And it is not just this show that is growing, but I want to say a quick word about another show that I am very closely related to, involved with, And that is the show of my husband, the Cooner Report. This week, we had an extraordinary gathering in Boston with all of his fans who came out to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Cooner Report. And my husband is an individual who speaks truth to power. He has done so throughout his entire career. And at last in Boston, he found his audience. We prayed long and hard that we would find that audience someday, somehow. We battled so many executives who told us that our brand of conservatism would never succeed. And we battled so many obstacles. We prayed that we would get a chance to have a show to last at least 1 full year. We got our first chance in Washington, D.C., and I was the executive producer of that show. We had a shoestring budget, and we nonetheless succeeded. We captured 25% of the market. We were going up against Rush Limbaugh. But just as we were building an audience, we got shifted to a different time slot. And then we had to rebuild the audience again in a new time slot. And we were succeeding again. And just as that was happening, way up above our heads, the decision came down that the entire station was going to flip to sports. And so that dream of having the Cooner Report or the Cooner Show be really successful, it was just truncated. But lo and behold, at last, through the vision of Bill Cooksey, we got a call to go to Boston and to work at the prestigious WRKO. And Jeff Cooner did so with my blessing and my full support, and we got what we had prayed for, 1 year to prove that our brand of conservatism works, it resonates, it speaks to hundreds, thousands, if not millions of Americans out there. And this week, it was truly a triumph because so many people came out to congratulate Jeff. And what I saw in all of that is that the people are thirsting for a true conservative champion. They are thirsting for a true Christian to be active and vocal in politics. And the fact that the Cooner Show has succeeded in a blue state gives me much, much hope that this can be replicated across many, many states. Our prayers were answered. The audience is there. The people are willing to fight for conservative and Christian values, and they really respond when those convictions come straight from the heart and when they come from somebody who practices what they preach. And I say all of this in triumph, in gratitude for the tremendous outpouring of affection that we received, but also because it pertains to this next topic. This week, there were also a string of races, and Chris Christie won in New Jersey, and Ken Cucinelli lost in Virginia. And you have the Republican establishment trying to tell us that the model for the entire country really should be the Chris Christie model, and that conservatives like Ken Cucinelli, Tea Party candidates, they're just a big bunch of losers. You have the Wall Street Journal today, editorial, an op-ed written by Karl Rove, and then there was another one on the op-ed page by a scholar, and they're all peddling the same garbage. And that garbage has been peddled really from the beginning of this year, with Reince Priebus, who came to Boston to tell the party that we really have to go soft on the social issues. And I'm here to say that's a bunch of nonsense. Ken Cucinelli did a really good job in the last few weeks of his campaign. He did have that strong conservative background, that strong stand on the social issues. And at the end of the campaign, he found an issue that really galvanized voters, and that is Obamacare. And he closed a huge gap, and he lost by a slither. He lost by 2.5%. And instead of analysts saying, well, look, the guy came close to winning. He came close to beating Terry McAuliffe, even though he was really vastly outfunded vastly outfunded by McAuliffe's campaign. Instead of analysts saying, you know what, Ken Cucinelli came very close, those conservative values, in conjunction with a hot button issue, almost achieved victory in Virginia. No, you know what they're saying? They're saying, oh, we lost because Cucinelli is just too darn conservative. He's too vocal on the social issues. He should soft pedal those social issues. We don't want to hear about gay, being pro-family, anti-gay marriage, anti-abortion. We don't want to hear that. That's what the establishment tries to say over and over again, and they look at any opportunity to try to turn it into some kind of a big example. In reality, they should be saying, look how close the guy came to winning. And the model is clear. He had the strong character, the strong convictions, plus he found an issue to campaign on. If the election had gone on for a couple more weeks, he would have won. And yet, they're not willing to see that because they've got an agenda. They are ashamed of conservative values deep down, and they're ashamed of Christian values. I've been saying this since I founded the Edmund Burke Institute in 2005. The Republican Party is rotten to the core. And deep down, they are ashamed of who they are. You've got a section of them that mouth conservative values, but they actually lead liberal lifestyle. So they kind of feel really conflicted, and it comes across in their defense of those values. And then you have another section that does it very cynically. They mouth the values, but they really don't care for the values at all. And this is destroying our country because in reality, Christians and conservatives don't have champions. That's why I said on my show, I've walked out of the Republican Party. I've given up on them. And one of the other things that none of the analysts are talking about, you actually had a lower turnout amongst Republicans than in previous elections. And what does that tell you? That tells you it's the same story as what happened in 2012. Many conservatives are staying home in these elections. True conservatives do not believe in the Republican Party any longer. If we would just tap into the Christians and the conservatives out there, we would be able to succeed. And so I'm here to tell all of you, ignore what all of the analysts are saying. Deep down, they are false Christians, and they are ashamed of their values, and they are ashamed of the Christian faith that has been traditionally the bedrock of the Republican Party. You know who gets some of the this analysis right on these elections this week? It's actually, ironically, on the left. You had someone on MSNBC, Chuck Todd, who said, you know what? Democrats are panicking. Well, why are Democrats panicking? Because Ken Cucinelli did show the way forward to a successful election victory because he came a slither from winning. Roll it, Brittany.
Look, we got to look at Virginia. As Virginia goes, so goes the nation. Right. Perfect swing state. They're ticked off at Republicans about the shutdown, and they're ticked off at Democrats about the rollout of health care. You can't look at what happened in Virginia if you're a Democrat and not sit there and panic. I talked to a bunch of Democrats last night. They're ecstatic that they survived, but they sit there and say, another week of health care, and this could have gone the other way. The other part of this, by the way, is there's going to be some major finger pointing. There already is major finger pointing this morning. Republicans walked away from Cucinelli.
They did.
And that's another point. The Republican establishment didn't give Mr. Cucinelli any support whatsoever, and yet he still came close to winning. Ironically, what do you see when you open the Wall Street Journal this morning? On the op-ed page, there was this piece about how the war on women is working, the themes are working, and that perhaps in order to defeat, if Hillary Clinton it becomes the primary candidate, the only way to defeat her is perhaps to send up a female candidate against her and to address this war on women by soft peddling the social issues. That is a bunch of garbage. In fact, we should be doing the very opposite. We have to throw more support for people like Ken Cucinelli. We have to give him more money. We have to show up in large numbers. And we also have to send a signal to the Republican Party. Your half-baked conservatism, your half-baked Christianity is the problem. It's not our core conviction that is the problem. Our core conviction made this country great. It makes people great. We are the solution. You are the problem. And so many of you, like the Karl Roves of this world, have such blinders on that you can't see the path to victory even when it's staring you right in the face. What people care about most is individuals who really care about their needs and who stand for the traditional values that made this country great. That is what is going to turn out the Christian and conservative voter base in droves. That is what is going to give us victory after victory in the long run. That is what is going to lead us to defeat the Democratic Party, and that is what is going to save this country. It's not by telling us to take our social issues and put them where the sun don't shine. It's actually the opposite advice that we should be giving everybody. Be proud of your Christian convictions. Speak loudly and boldly. Speak without compromise on your Christian convictions. And you'd be surprised how many people who are usually apathetic and uninterested in politics suddenly come out to the polls because guess what? They start to believe in you. They start to believe that their vote is a vote that they can cast in principle and according to their own deeply held convictions. So Karl Rove and the Wall Street Journal, you guys got it wrong. The Republican establishment, you are misreading the tea leaves. Kudos to Ken Cucinelli and to all folks out there who supported him and support this Tea Party movement. It is this nation's last and best hope. You are listening to Dr. Grace, the editor of Politics and Culture at worldtribune.com, and I'm here to uphold values that will never die.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Let's go crazy, crazy, crazy till we see the sun. I know we only met, but let's pretend it's love. And never, never, never stop for anyone. Tonight, let's get some and live while we're young.
Welcome back to American Heartland with Dr. Grace. I'm the editor of Politics and Culture at worldtribune.com. And that song you just heard is One Direction, talking about, let's live while we're young. They're peddling that mantra that you hear in our culture just about everywhere, that true living is the life of hedonism. And we'll talk in this segment in just a couple minutes how someone like Ashton Kutcher is beginning to take a stand against this hedonistic culture. But before I get to that theme, I want to address something else that really got under my skin this week. And that is Michele Obama celebrating a feast of lights, essentially. It's a Hindu feast at the White House. And essentially, she's trying to show that the White House is a very, very diverse place. Roll it, Brittany.
As you may know, we've celebrated this holiday here at the White House every year since Barack took office. And there's a reason why we've done that. And I mentioned it to the kids. When we say that we want to make the White House the people's house, we mean all people. We mean that we want to honor and embrace all of the many cultures and faith traditions that make us who we are as Americans. And Diwali is very much one of those traditions. As you know, this holiday is celebrated by members of some of the world's oldest religions, not just here in America, but across the globe.
This is such an infuriating statement. I don't know if you're as upset about it as I am. She says that the White House is essentially devoted to celebrate. It's the people's house because we want to celebrate all of the different faith traditions and all of the cultures in our country, and that's what makes America what it is. What planet is this woman living on? America is great because it has its own distinct religion, the religion that founded this country. It has a distinct constitution. It has a distinct political system. That's what makes America great. And other cultures come to this country because they like what we have created, not because they want us to kowtow to them. That's another thing that I don't think this White House quite understands. Do you think that Muslims, Indian Americans, anybody of another faith, that they respect Americans when Americans basically throw away their birthright in order to kowtow to them? They don't even respect us for it. They think that we're a bunch of fools. And I can tell you, I have some dear friends who are Muslims, and I know how they think. And I know what they say. They would respect us more if Michele Obama came forward and gave a speech on how great Christianity is and what the links are between our Christian faith and the free institutions that we have created, and why this country is so great that people from all over the world give up their own cultures, their own traditions to come here. Instead, this idiot is doing the opposite. She's saying, yeah, you left those countries, you left those traditions, and you know what? We're going to make the White House a kind of image of what you left behind because we respect and love you. And these people are thinking, you idiot, I don't respect you for this, number one. Number two, I left that behind to come here. And I would like you more if you just stood for something. When America tries to be all things to all people, you know what it really amounts to? One big zero. It's nothing to nobody. And that is why I'm really annoyed at Michele Obama. But that's all par for the course when it comes, when anything from this administration moves forward. It seems that I have a negative reaction to it. But I want to end the show on a positive note. Ashton Kutcher. Who would have guessed that the voice of reason nowadays is Ashton Kutcher, the actor? He, by the way, was caught in a cheating scandal recently, and that led to the breakup of his marriage to the actress Demi Moore. He's now with another actress, Mila Kunis, and yet he nowadays seems to be the voice of reason and the voice of morality. He gave a speech at the Teen Choice Awards in which he told the youth to make opportunity by working hard. Wow. Big applause. I was applauding it. You know, that used to be common sense. I'm happy he had the courage to say it. You've got to work hard in order to make your opportunities, and you've got to take on any job that comes your way in order to rise in this world. One of the things that I tell young people all the time is this: if you're not working extremely hard in your 20s, if you're not working either at getting an education or putting in long hours for low pay somewhere, you're likely to have a very difficult 30s and 40s. And yet, if you're working extremely hard in your youth, you're likely to have a very pleasant life in your 30s, 40s, and onwards. The message we have to send our kids is not party it up in your teens and in your 20s, but work as hard as you can. Because if you work hard when you're young, you can do a lot of partying almost for the rest of your life. You have the money to travel. You can enjoy the finer things in this world. You can enjoy a lot of great things that this wonderful, magnificent, beautiful world has to offer. But everyone I know who parties when they're young, they don't get very far. And then they end up struggling really hard for the rest of their lives. They're at jobs that don't pay very well, and they're kind of stuck in a rut with families, low-paying jobs, and their window of opportunity narrows and narrows. And the horizons of their life gets narrower and narrower. So we're sending the youth the inverted message. Do not party when you're young, because what it means is in the long run, you're going to have a life of slavery, a life of hard work and drudgery. But if you work hard when you're young and you have the energy to do it, what ends up happening is you reap a tremendous amount of benefits in your 30s and 40s. You end up riding the ladder of success in which you can actually enjoy so many of the things that we call good times. So we're actually sending a message that is counterproductive as well as immoral. And Ashton Kutcher is one of those people who is the voice of reason and morality. Who would have thunk that? And you know what else he said recently on the Ellen DeGeneres show? He said that our culture of fame is wrong-headed. Roll it, Brittany.
It was kind of like, I don't know if I'll ever get another Teen Choice Award again, but it just felt like an opportunity to be honest. I think that so much of what we see in the world today is this sort of propaganda machine around fame and around celebrity, and I actually think that there are some kids in the world that grow up today that think, when I grow up I want to be famous, instead of when I grow up I want to do something, I want to build something, I want to create something. And I thought that it was a valuable moment to actually let them know that it's all of that's kind of crap, and that, you know, working hard and being thoughtful and generous and smart, it's a path to a better life.
And he said it right. Fame is garbage. In fact, for centuries, I'm not talking decades, I'm talking for centuries, we taught people that the pursuit of fame is actually evil. Because essentially, when you are pursuing fame, you're pursuing your own self-aggrandizement. So that is an act of pride. And you're trying to build up the self, the ego. This puts all your focus inward instead of outward. So fame is actually evil. It is a reflection of selfishness and pride, if that is what you are pursuing. And fame can eat you up. It can steal your soul. Why do I say that? Because what happens to people who gain more and more fans, they can lose sight of what they're meant to do on this earth, which is to do God's will. And that's the only way they're going to save their souls. So fame is evil in itself, and it can even destroy a person who starts out good, who starts out with a true calling or a true vocation. So we used to teach the young to be very weary of fame. We no longer have the courage, the decency, or the smarts to do so, except for Ashton Kutcher, that is. And listen to what else he had to say.
Well, it's just a different, like the system has changed now, and the means to success. When you have people that are famous for the sake of being famous, or famous for the sake of being second-generation wealthy families, I think it shifts a dynamic in society. And I also think that there's an entitlement that is starting to emerge that I think is unhealthy for people and unhealthy for a country. And it was funny, like I talked to some of my friends and they don't want to get a job at Starbucks, or they don't want to get a job at wherever because they feel like it's below them. And I think the only thing that can be below you is to not have a job.
You got it, Ashton. And you know what else we used to teach our young people? That work, whatever the work is, purifies us and it brings us close to the Lord, that it makes us good. Work in and of itself, no matter what it is that you're doing, whether you're cleaning the toilet, whether you're picking up trash, work is good and fame is bad. And I thought that Ashton Kutcher did something very good too. He makes a link between our culture of fame and our culture of entitlement. Those two things are going together. We have young people who are pursuing fame for its own sake, and who have a sense that they're owed material things, regardless of any effort they put into it. And that is because the pursuit of fame and this desire for entitlement, it's all focused on the self. And that's another key thing we no longer teach. The greatest happiness comes not from focusing on the self, but from focusing on all those around us. This is the central message of Christianity. It is the central teaching of Jesus and of God. Do not focus on yourself, but love others as completely and as thoroughly as you can. This is the path to happiness and to salvation. We must say this every day to our young people. Thank you, Ashton Kutcher, for being the voice of reason and morality in this dysfunctional America. You are listening to Dr. Grace Vuoto, the editor of Politics and Culture at worldtribune.com, upholding values that will never, never die.
Stars and stripes, and the eagle flies.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.